Zoobie Show on the world famous LIR.com, 927LIR.com, and on YouTube. I am John Kalaboukas, the Bouk, with my friend Paul Zubulake, Zoobie, and special guest, hockey expert, Steve Psihos. Welcome to the show, Mr. Psihos.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on your show, gentlemen.
Oh, thanks for coming, Steve. We're very excited to talk a little NHL, primarily the tri-state teams that made it. Unfortunately, the Devils had a disastrous season, so they are already golfing. And, we'll even get into the Western Conference as well. But we'll throw in some other sports as well, because I know my partner is chomping at the bit because of his baseball team is making some inroads. So, John, it's been a good week.
It has been a very good week. Very good week. And the manager actually followed my advice. And if you notice, he changed the lineup the day after I mentioned it. And guess what? They have won 10 out of 13. So I have a lot to say. So I'm actually happy with him now, a little bit.
All right, well, you have to be honest. We're going to cover them week to week. We'll get to them later, but we're going to start off with the NHL, where for some reason the Eastern Conference is waiting around for the Western Conference to finish their regular season. So, right, Steve, I believe some of the matchups in the West have yet to actually been decided. That's accurate, right?
Right, correct. I think they're waiting. Edmonton could wind up playing Vegas or the Kings, and then Vegas could wind up playing Edmonton or my brain just blanked out there. Dallas. I'm sorry.
Right. So Dallas.
So they could wind up playing Dallas.
Right. So Dallas had the best season, regular season, which is similar to our beloved Rangers, who had the best season in the East and actually in the NHL. But I would think both of them are not favorites to win or even get to the finals. So what's your, first of all, before we get into like the matchup, Steve, what was your overall feel for the actual Rangers season, since you're heavily involved with the team?
You know what? From start to finish, they were pretty consistent. They had a little lull there. Their power play, phenomenal, top 3 in the league. Penalty killing, top 3 in the league. Their goaltending after the All-Star break, Igor came on, playing like Igor. Quick has been fantastic for us as a backup goalie. Last year, it looked like he was finished, but Benoit Allais, our goalie coach, has got the hand of God with him, and Quick looked phenomenal. I thought, for what is he, late 30s, 37, 38, 39, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal. And the 5-on-5 scoring, could have seen a little improvement. Hopefully we see a little improvement on that come playoff time. Panarin was phenomenal. I mean, he changed his game around, started shooting more instead of, a little curl at the blue line and backhanded pass that was getting intercepted all the time. Lafreniere came on this year, playing with Panarin. I mean, he's at 26, 27, 28 goals, so he's coming on. So I'm as a Ranger fan, I'm happy with the season. You win the President's Trophy, you're the best. You got to be happy, right? But the big cup, the one that they raised, that's the one we want.
No doubt. And I agree with you, because I was actually, I'll be honest, I was a little down on them coming into the season. I did not like the Lavalette hiring at all. I was just like a retread. And I still could be proven correct on that one if they go downhill from here, because this, let's face it, is the second season. But he definitely seemed to change the attitude. He's definitely a tougher guy. And I guess Gallant was just more of a grumpy character. But just like the NHL in general, it's just a revolving door at the head spot. So so I give him credit. I'm very happy they blew away my expectations. Panarin, no doubt, was the difference. It's not even close. And then, of course, Trocheck, I thought just was tremendous, especially his face-offs, which this franchise, which has historically been an awful face-off team, is now they're basically better than most teams they face, and Trocheck's the reason.
Absolutely, agree 100% on Trocheck.
I want to ask each one of you. I'll start off with Steve. How did you become a Ranger fan? First of all, Steve, why don't you give us a little bit of a background, because Steve was a hockey player and a very good hockey player. Why don't you tell us first how you got involved with hockey, and second, how you became a Ranger fan?
Well, I grew up in Belmore, and Newbridge Ice Rink is in Belmore. And my neighbors across the street, Donnie and Lorraine Mitchell, were skaters and got into ice capades and got us into skating. And from there, just from skating, and just started playing hockey. How I got into the Rangers, was it Channel 9 WOR or Channel 11 WPIX? They were on back in the day. And I remember one time just flipping through the channels, right? We didn't have the remote. You had to walk up to the TV, and I'm dating myself, and you had to change the channels. And I saw ice hockey, and I just sat there watching, and I was like fascinated by this game. And just from then on, just loved ice hockey. Wound up playing until I was, I think, like 39 years old.
Wow.
Finally, body got a little worn there, so I had to give that up. And but I watch hockey all day long.
How did you pick the Rangers? Was it just because you saw them on Channel 9 or Channel 11?
Yes, there was no Islanders when I started liking Rangers in '69. Right. There was 1969. Like I said, I'm kind of old there. So there was no Islanders. I remember going to an Islander California Golden Seals game. Now they're not even a team anymore. Finley, the guy who owned the Oakland A's, owned the Golden Seals.
Yep.
Charlie Finley is his name, right?
Sure.
And Charlie Finley. So my dad took me to an Islander game at the Coliseum, right around, Long Island right here. And I remember going to this game, and people weren't even cheering for the Islanders in '72. Nobody really was cheering for anything, didn't know what was going on. And, I was already a Ranger fan, but, it's nice to have a team in our backyard, even though I am not an Islander fan. When you're a Ranger fan, you cannot be an Islander fan. Suffering through the 80s scars you. And they had some teams them in the 80s, but they kept killing us every year.
Yeah, no, I'm another Nassau County guy who's a Ranger fan, so I didn't have that good excuse, even though I do remember obviously watching them on free TV, real free TV, I guess,
right,
besides the electrical bill. And it was only road games, right, Steve? So it was like you never saw the Garden Ice. You didn't even know what it looked like besides some highlight maybe, or one of the national games even. Hockey was just so. People think it's bad now when it comes to exposure. Back then, forget it. But yeah, I wasn't smart enough to switch over because John and I, were in high school when the Islanders were made that run, and yeah, it was brutal. It really was. I mean, the Rangers took care of them in '79, but after that, the Islanders just took. Oh my God, it was bad, right? Every year, right, John?
Every year.
Yeah. 4 years in a row, and then fifth year onto the finals. It was like, but I tell you, that fifth year in the finals, Messier went around Potvin. I think Stepan Pearson shot one off the post off Billy Smith and went in. I was watching with a bunch of Islander fans. Said, "You guys just lost the series," and they were all laughing at me. It was just something about the way that goal went in. And Messier, as our Rangers know, I got to thank him twice. Once for stopping that drive to 5, and once for '94. But, like I said, I mean, I can turn on hockey. I tape games. I know the score. I'll still watch it. Yeah, I just enjoy the game.
I'm going to give you a very quick story about Steve. So I don't know if, Steve, why don't you really quickly tell us how you made your own hockey rink at your dad's house?
So I used to go to Canada a lot. I had relatives in Canada, and on the baseball fields in the school, they built little hockey rinks, right? So I was checking it out, and I saw it, and I got this idea when I was home to build a hockey rink. So I bought 2x6s, nailed them all together, and the boat covers, those blue boat liners, put that in there, stapled it around, filled it with water, and was hoping that it would freeze. It's funny, when I was building it, a couple of guys from the team came, and they were all kind of laughing at me, and then it got cold, and they called me up, "Is that rink freeze?" I said, "Yeah, but you laughed at me, you can't come skate." So, I mean, it was a lot of fun. I would want to do it today, but my knee says no, and the weather really doesn't take. I mean, you need like 2 weeks, really cold to get it going. But yeah, I've had my neighbors called the building inspector on me for that rink. They called the police on me on that rink. I don't know if I'm going too far on this, but I got home like 1:30 in the morning. I couldn't go to sleep. I put the skates on, took the stick, and was out there. And the police pulled up and said I was waking everybody up and disturbing everybody. But just got a great love for that sport. Hopefully, I'm not driving you guys nuts with hockey. I can just go
No,
on and
no.
on.
Now, of course, that's what the show's all about. My God, that's what it's about today. So we're happy to have somebody who really has a great love for the game. And I do have a love myself. I just couldn't skate and couldn't even roller skate because and actually, John, we used to do street hockey, right? So that's what we used to play, where we'd all get together and go to the park and play street hockey and set up, some sort of maybe somebody had. I think I actually had a net at one time, one of those with
Yeah.
the red. Right, the up and down with the red bars, and it looked like a hockey net, and then usually had a baseball glove as the goalie guy. Whoever's in
Right.
net had a baseball mitt.
I remember that. It's true.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's yeah.
that's cool. So, what position did
In
you play?
Boston, center or left wing. It
Okay.
then depends on who I was playing with. It reminds me hearing stories in Boston when Bobby Orr was big, and it was the actor. I forget the actor's name at this point, but he was saying how when they were winning on every street, you'd see hockey nets set up and the kids playing street hockey. So it can be when the team's doing good, you got more followers. Like the Islanders in the '80s, how many fans? The Coliseum was packed constantly, right? Then they started losing, it wasn't so packed, right? But it's a sport that everybody's, I think, is given a shot once, but it's not an easy sport to play. It's not like you can get one ball and a glove and go play. You need equipment and this and that. So, you know.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
I'm glad to see you guys played a little street hockey there. I like that.
Yeah, our version of it was probably more hacking than actual scoring. So, but yeah, and then I remember in gym class they used to have like the indoors,
Huh?
the indoor version of
With the
hockey.
foam
So,
puck, I think.
yeah, right. So, I mean, Long Island, New York, it's always been a hotbed for hockey. Hockey's a niche sport. I mean, there's no more devoted fans than hockey. If you look at the percentage of seats sold, and actually, more importantly, not even sold, who's actually showing up, NHL's percentage is awesome. It's usually near the top of all the majors. So,
90,
yeah,
Paul, they actually had their highest attendance this year, 97% capacity this year.
it
The
was okay.
highest
There,
attendance ever
Wow,
in NHL. That's pretty good,
I'm
97%
surprised.
you're not kidding. That's
capacity.
fantastic.
Wow.
And actually,
Yeah,
I
I
guess
didn't realize that.
yeah. One of the snoots, I guess, stories quickly is Arizona, which was always a fraudulent area to go play hockey and have a team, is going to another
Right.
fraudulent area to have a hockey team. But at least Utah, in theory, it gets cold enough, right, Steve, for a little skating out. At least it gets cold there, so maybe they'll actually get good support.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny when Vegas was coming in, I didn't think they'd do well, to be honest with you, because I like you're in Vegas, you're going to go watch hockey, you're going to go to casino, you're going to go out. So I didn't think they would do well, but I was 100% wrong. Vegas sells out constantly. So maybe Utah, surprise you. Maybe they'll do good. But like I said, when everyone says, "What do you think of Vegas?" Who's going? I'm in Las Vegas. I'm going to go watch hockey. I'm going to go to casino. But no, they show up for the Vegas Golden Knights. You know,
Well,
do
it
well. But
didn't
that
hurt that they
Arizona
were
had become a joke.
it didn't hurt
Go
that
ahead,
they were
John.
a very good team right from the beginning either. I mean, if they started out as a
That always
lousy
helps.
team, I mean, they
Right.
but the funny thing
Yeah.
about that deal, Paul, that you just mentioned is so they sold the team to the Utah Jazz owner for 1.2 billion. But Arizona can get a shot at another team if they build an arena within 5 years. It has to be a hockey arena. So they have 5 years to build an arena in Arizona, and then they'll get a team back. That's the deal.
I doubt if they're going to pull that one off. But sometimes you need to put them
Yeah.
against the wall to make the deal. Very similar to the Islander fiasco with what was it, the
Oh,
Lighthouse Project, whatever that was, John?
yes, it was.
What was that? The
Yeah.
town
Yeah,
town of
that's what
North
it's called.
Hempstead held
Yes.
it hostage.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Right. Yeah.
It's funny. I could give you a quick story on that. So I actually got called because I was working at the time for Nassau BOCES. And what they were trying to do is uh, get support for the project. So they called me in because I was in charge of career and technical education for Nassau County. And they wanted to show that we'll give people jobs there and internships. And so they showed us all the plans. It was just a magnificent layout, but wrong people running the town of Hempstead. Now look what's happening. They want to use that site now. They're trying to get gambling there. Of course, you know how much I love gambling.
Oh my God.
Total misuse of that
I do have to
location.
correct myself. I did say the town of North Hempstead, so we don't want to put
Town
them
of
in there.
Hempstead.
It's town of Hempstead, and the right people weren't getting the bribes, right? Then they couldn't get that deal done. So I mean,
Well,
let's be honest.
Hey, I'm not arguing with you on that one.
Anyway, well,
You
I
know,
don't know,
just
have you, yeah, so Steve, you're a Ranger guy, so you're not going to go, but UBS Arena, so it sounds great. Oh, they have their own arena, but they put it in Queens, where the traffic over there is a complete nightmare. So I don't, it's
uh,
a shame because it's Central Nassau was the spot the Islanders should have been
yes, it
in.
was.
It's really a tragedy that
agreed.
the sports tragedy that really happened. I mean, that's where they should be. Easy access. They had huge amount of area to park. Great spot, and now they're in this area, like I said, by the racetrack. And anybody who's ever gone over there, I mean, that's definitely could be a mess, right? The old Cross Island, Southern State, debacle.
Hempstead Turnpike, and not only that, I was told, and I actually called up because I was going to go to Billy Joel concert for New Year's there. I couldn't go, but $50 to park your car. 50 to park. So what do you think people are doing? People are parking in the neighborhood. They walk 6 blocks. You could go and park in front of someone's house. What do you need to pay $50 for? And you're right, Paul, to get in and out of there. I mean, I just did it during the day because it's Hempstead Turnpike. They have it's ridiculous how little parking they have, and if it's an Islander game, that Cross Island must be backed up for miles over there, both ways.
Well, I heard they're going to have they're going to have
Politicians.
during the U.S. Open, they're going to have the Mets play, and they're going to just have a hockey game in there too, so we can have the greatest traffic jam of all time.
You know, it's crazy. They didn't want to pay for the renovations and stuff for the Coliseum. It's not like Nassau County doesn't have a lot of money or they're not taxing us enough or this and that. And then they have to move to Brooklyn, which I refuse to go to Brooklyn. The Islanders are a Long Island team. I would go to the Coliseum. I wouldn't go to Brooklyn if you gave me the tickets for free before the UBS. But I mean, like they were complaining about the taxes going up to build, that area to build up the Coliseum. Well, you don't charge us enough taxes. You can find the money to do that. I mean, really? I mean, New York. Yeah, it's not like we're a poor state here, or you know what I'm saying. It was crazy. I just so disappointing, and for Islander fans, had to be really disappointing. You know,
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well,
and like you
enough
said, you got
about.
the parkways there.
Yeah. Well,
Enough about the Islanders. I agree.
no, well, definitely the Islanders, but
Politics.
just also traffic in Nassau County and kind of giving Nassau County a hard time. But since we're all from Nassau County, that's what we're doing, folks. So anyway, quickly, before we get into the actual games and who do we think is going to win, thanks again to our guest Steve for joining and our primary platform, but we have multiple platforms. YouTube.com, search Bouk and Zoobie that you see on the screen. We are a word of mouth podcast. So Steve, make sure family and friends are watching, pass the word around, pass the show around. That's how we're building a little bit of an audience. We're also our great partners at LIR, the world famous LIR.com, 927LIR.com, and on Spotify.com. So that's where you can get our content. Hope everybody's enjoying the show. Please, as always, subscribe, like the episodes. It drives the algo on all the platforms. So just, again, if you do that favor for us, it would be great. And if you want to comment, you can even
That's
comment, right, John? And give John kudos for his hanging in there with his New York Metropolitans. And also, I guess from a hockey perspective, John does lean to the Rangers, but he'll take the Knicks and probably the Mets over the Rangers. John, is that fair to say that you will watch
Yes,
the
of course,
Mets and the
of
Knicks
course,
over the Rangers? So,
of course.
Steve, it's you and I talking hockey. John, maybe you should just leave the room. I don't know. So, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding.
Well,
and
before
as far as spreading the word, definitely will do that. I get around. I know a lot of people, so I will spread the word.
Yeah, you're making your
I
debut.
I'll
one
tell
thing I
all my
wanted to
students
let
they've gotta watch, and that's it.
one thing I wanted to let you guys before we spoke about the games. So yesterday there's a new documentary out, and I think both of you would really like it. It's called Saving Sakic. So it's the whole idea about how the Rangers were trying to get him from the Avalanche and offering him a $15 million upfront payment. And it's a great documentary. You have to see it. It's on ESPN Plus. And it tells you about the whole scenario about Sakic.
Really?
Joe Sakic.
Wow. It's funny because I do usually have ESPN Plus, but it's one of those things that when I don't need the content, I do get rid of it. So I will be, once college football starts up, John, I'll get it back. So I don't know if Steve, if you subscribe to ESPN Plus, because there is a lot of hockey on ESPN Plus.
Right, there's a lot of hockey on that. Yes, I don't have that. We have everything else in the house, but I don't have that for some reason. But the Joe Sakic thing, I'd be real interested in. The Rangers, I believe, gave him an offer sheet, if I remember correctly,
Yeah, it was
and he stayed with the Avalanche.
It was
Right?
yeah, but you know what the whole story was is that it was 3 years, 21 million, but 15 million up front. So make it hard for the Avalanche to actually sign him. And I
Right.
didn't know that if he signed with the Rangers, I had to write it down. It was crazy that the Avalanche would actually get 5 first-round
First
picks
round.
from the. I mean, what kind of
Yeah.
crazy that's crazy. But the whole story
Hockey works
was
like
that
that.
the people who owned the Avalanche actually were in the movies. And at that time, their first major hit, they were waiting for Air Force One. It's with Harrison Ford. And if the movie didn't do well, they weren't signing Sakic. The fact that it did well, they said, okay, we have the money, we can sign him. That's what it came down to. They took the full week to
I
decide if
didn't
they
know
were
that.
going to sign him. I'm telling you, you guys would love this documentary. I'm not that much into
I
hockey,
wish
but I thought it was fascinating about this whole thing.
I wish the movie didn't do well. I wish we got Sakic. We might have had a few more Stanley Cups. That guy was
Oh,
some player.
I think so.
And now he's the GM of the Avalanche, actually.
Yeah, you're right.
Right?
And they actually
And he's got a
they're
great team.
one of the teams to watch out west. They've got the
A
best
great
players out west. I mean, quickly before we get into the games again, so MVP, we did it for the NBA the other day. Who's your MVP in the NHL? Because it's another one that, I mean, Panarin's in there, but he's not going to win. Who do you think actually pulls it out, Steve?
Right. I would give it, and I'm a huge McKinnon fan and McDavid fan, but I've got to give it to Kucherov for the 100 assists. He led his team. I believe he has 50 more points than the next closest guy on his team. That is amazing. He also is the leading scorer in the NHL. Besides the 100 assists, McDavid also got 100 assists this year. But to have 50 more points, or 53, it might be more points than the next closest guy on your team, I've got to say you carried that team.
Okay. All right.
So I would go Kucherov.
And also
You
this
know,
one, we should point out the other spectacular years. Austin Matthews desperately tried to get 70 goals. He had 69 goals. What a year he had. You mentioned Kucherov. McKinnon I mean, him and McDavid are the two best players. I mean, they are spectacular
agree.
to watch. And then Panarin just had a tremendous season. He really did. But unfortunately, he's going to come up a little short. So I will actually say Kucherov is not going to win. I'm going to say there's a little bias there against the certain
Okay.
country there.
Because of the All-Star game?
What was that?
Because of the All-Star game? Because of the All-Star game?
Because of the country where he's from. That's why. I'm sorry.
I didn't think of that.
I'm not saying that's going to
Okay.
happen. This will be a good test of that theory, but I'll go with McKinnon MVP. But I'm not saying you're wrong. This Kucherov probably had the best year, so we'll see how the votes come out.
And McKinnon would be my second choice. But Panarin, if you talk about most valuable player to your team, Panarin really carried the Rangers also. And the reason, I go by most valuable player to your team, and that's why I go Kucherov, because to have 50 more points than the next closest guy, that's huge.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? So.
All right. Well.
But after that All-Star debacle, he should lose a few points.
Yeah. So what happened with that again? Remind me, because I do. Once you start talking about it, I guess I'll remember. What did he do again?
They were doing the skills competition, and he just mailed it in.
Okay, that's what it was.
Yeah, he just mailed it in during the skills competition. Yeah, he wasn't even trying. It was embarrassing, I thought.
Oh, he embarrassed.
So lose a few points for that. But again, I'm a big McKinnon McDavid fan, but I've got to go with Kucherov. Yeah.
All right. So the way it played out, let's get right to the games now. We'll go with the East because we probably talked too much about the West anyway. And like I said earlier, we don't know exactly who's playing who. So we'll just get to let's just get to the Tri-State series, right? So, can the Islanders, we'll start with them, then we'll get to our team. Do they have a shot? Can they pull a big upset against Carolina, a team? How many points did they finish behind them? It was pretty significant, right?
Almost 20 points. And Carolina, they had the second best penalty kill, the best penalty kill in the NHL, I believe, and they had the second best power play in the NHL, and they added Gensel and Kuznetsov from Washington. Carolina's Achilles heel has always been a little bit of scoring, so they added these two scorers. The Islanders have been hot. They've been playing great. They've got the goalies. Either goalie, Varlamov has been playing great. Sorokin is a great goalie. So they have the advantage in the net, I believe. But I just think Carolina is just too strong. Like I said, their specialty teams have finished first and second in the NHL. Their defense is really strong. The Islanders have a good defense also. I just think Carolina is too deep. And they're like a buzzsaw. They're like a swarm of bees when they play you. Their forecheck, man, they force turnovers, And I might be a little biased because I'm a Ranger fan, but I would see Carolina in 5 or 6 games.
Okay. That's fair. And Noah Dobson, he hopefully is playing for the Islanders. I think he missed the last few games, right? So they have to have him.
Right. He's big for their power play, right? Yeah, the Islanders' power play wasn't that great this year, and with Dobson out, it's just going to dive a little more. And I believe Carolina's healthy. I'm not sure, but I believe everybody's healthy on Carolina.
Well, hopefully they could take him to 7. So that's always the goal. Now, the NHL, I get so confused with the different sports. The NHL, unlike the NBA, I think they do reseed after the first round. Steve, do you know that for a fact? I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
As far as what do you mean if the first round
they reseed the playoffs? So if the Islanders beat the Hurricanes, it wouldn't be automatic that they would play the Rangers, right? I think it would.
Yes, I believe it is.
But they would
stay within the conferences.
They would probably play the Rangers anyway, right? Because they would be the low
right.
Probably
if the Rangers beat Carolina, if the Islanders beat Carolina and the Rangers win, they'll play each other.
They will play.
And then the winners of Boston, Tampa will wind up playing the winners of Florida, the Boston Leafs, and the winners of Tampa, Florida will play each other.
Right. Okay.
Like the way they're doing now, the conferences are kind of separated. But that's how it used to be. And hockey changes on me, so they could have changed it on me, but I believe that's how it goes.
That we always joke about the NHL and how they operate. I do want to get back to that. Actually, one thing, we'll get right to it, and we'll get to Rangers Cats, folks. We're going to kind of tease it one more time. things that drive me crazy, Steve, and then you can kind of react off of that with the NHL. And also the way that the networks, this is definitely the number one disaster for the playoffs. I know John's shaking his head. First round, we're going to have, Sam and Joe Micheletti, Sam Rosen and Joe Micheletti, who we're so used to as Ranger fans, right? Not to, yes. And of course, they do get the first round. And then after that, the pain goes into the network side where not only do we have to deal with ESPN, we have to deal with TNT doing hockey. And the most absurd thing on TV, Steve, is this thing now with the national broadcast where they put the names of the players on your screen during the power play only and only the offensive team. So how many times have I already missed a goal happening because the puck's going through the name and you miss where it goes? So I don't, anybody out there, and Steve, if you know anybody in the NHL office, we've got to get this going viral about this. Get rid of this. And hopefully if the Rangers, big market TV teams go far, we can get rid of this. Because why do you have announcers doing the game? That's their job to tell us who is on the ice and who has the puck. So that actually is my number one peeve right now with the NHL. What do you think of that TV part, Steve?
I agree with you 100%. And the way that they market the game, and I feel they don't market their stars enough. Like you got a guy like Connor McDavid who's like all world, and you ask people like who? Like market the stars a little bit, but I do agree with the little name tag above the player is ridiculous. Camera angles. I would like to see a little closer, like the cameras, like you're watching a guy skate down the ice. I'd like to be able to see his number almost, like get a little better camera angle. That's something I'd like to see. And what drives me nuts, I don't know if it drives you nuts, linemen drop the puck. Do you ever notice they get in a face-off circle and they're kicking everybody out before they drop? Just get them in and drop the puck. It's 30 seconds later. We haven't dropped the puck yet. That drives me nutty also.
Right, because they did change that rule, right? Where it used I think it was like the home team got the advantage of who puts the stick down, and they changed it, right?
Yes.
If you're in the defensive zone. So NHL loves to make these little subtle changes in their rules. And like remember, like they had the old offside pass, right? It used to be two lines, right? And then when you just got teams were like, that was one thing. And then teams were just dumping the puck in and causing these like automatic offsides. Then they went back to the old rule, and then they've gone back again where they let you dump it in and you have to re-tag up. So they have changed their game so many times. It's like a round and circle. It just kind of drives me nuts.
Right, I agree. I do like the new touch-up rule, though, that you were talking, the offsides where you can get back at it. So it keeps the game going. And another thing that they improved that I really like is back in the day, they used to freeze the puck against the boards all the time, blow the whistle. Now the rest of the town to move it. So I think that those changes were good. But when you talk about the name tags, do you remember the vapor behind the puck years ago?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, of course.
That was it might have been the stupidest thing I've ever seen in sports.
Yeah, no,
It had a vapor trail behind the puck. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like instead of watching the puck, you're watching the vapor trail. Yeah, that was crazy. But if you want to get a petition going to get rid of those names, I'll put my signature on that petition. Let's get it going.
And I have to agree with Steve as far as the camera angles. I think, Paul, I actually even mentioned that on the show a couple of times where you can't really see the puck. Why don't they have closer cameras? I mean, it seems like in certain arenas they're further away or they're on top of it. I just don't know what they're doing. I mean, why isn't it uniform? Why don't they have it uniform where you can actually get close up and see the puck? I never understood that about hockey. Yes. I think that's why it's not so easy to follow on TV. I mean, I actually watched forgot which game. It was about a week ago, and they actually had close-ups of the puck where it almost seemed like you were right behind the player as they were skating, as you said, Steve. But why isn't it uniform? Why isn't every team doing this, or every network?
The
It'll make
arenas.
it so much better for the
It's
marketing. People could follow what's going on.
it's the arenas. As the arenas, new arenas, bigger arenas, the cameras got further back in the arenas. If you watch a Calgary Flames home game, they still have the old Saddle Dome Arena, I think they call it. I'm not sure the name if it changed. You'll see players in the ice better. But as the arenas got bigger, this is what I noticed for me, is the cameras will move back to not to take up premium seating, I believe.
Mm.
Now, I'm not saying that's 100% correct, but like you said, you watch different teams in different arenas and you can see the ice better. But Calgary, to me, is where you could see the ice the best, and they might have the oldest arena in the NHL, one of the oldest. I mean, Madison Square Garden obviously has been, I don't know how long, the Garden's been there, but it's been refurbished, redone, and everything like that. But that's something I'd like to see change. Like years ago, you'd watch a guy skate down the ice with the puck, and I could tell you what brand stick he was using because I could see it. Not today, So that's one of my things, you know. But and you're seeing that too, John, as someone who's just watching hockey, you're noticing it yourself that it's not uniform like in the NBA, NFL, and Major League Baseball. It's pretty uniform, the camera angles and everything that you're seeing, right?
Yeah.
Well, the
Yeah.
NHL's got to step it up, I
They're
believe.
all over the place. They're all over the place.
Mhm. Someone call Gary Bettman, will you? Let's get
Oh,
him on the
please.
phone.
I've called for his head a few times on Bouk and Zoobie. So yeah, let's get to the series now. People are like, all right, time,
Go ahead.
stop complaining, talk about the game. So the Rangers, most people are going to say, and I can't disagree, it worked out for them. So getting the Capitals is the team that you wanted to play. The Islanders just kind of would have been a headache. That would have been a grueling series. But Washington still has they have some top-notch players, and John Carlson and obviously Ovechkin is still around, and also their goaltender, which has got this connection to the Rangers, Charlie Lindgren, who has played really well against the Rangers. So, what's your view on the Caps, Steve? And if you can give us our fan base maybe a couple of guys that people aren't going to talk about, like I mentioned the obvious guys. How about some other names on the Caps that you're
Right.
concerned
With the Caps, everyone knows him. Tom Wilson is a guy that can change your mindset. He wipes out a few guys, levels a few guys. Now you start looking around, right? Like in football, they say the receiver goes over the middle, alligator arms. Well, in ice hockey, you get leveled a few times by a guy like that. You start looking around. So he can have an impact on the series. As far as, other guys for Washington, I really, besides Lindgren, the goalie that you did mention, and he finished off the season really strong. And obviously his brother plays defense for us Rangers. He plays really well against us, and he did finish off the season really strong. So he's a concern, but I don't have many concerns with the Caps except for that they might beat us up physically a bit. They have a little bit of a TJ Oshie. I'm sorry, TJ Oshie's a guy to look out for. He can hit. He takes people out. He took Lindgren out last year or the year before. He took him out with a hit, and he's got really good hands, TJ Oshie. So he's a guy, American kid, but he's a guy he's older now. He's been hurt this season, but for a playoff series, he's a guy I believe for Washington that can step it up, and you got to look out for. Like you said, Ovechkin is Ovechkin. He's a little older. He's slowed down, but if he finds that fountain of youth for a 7-game series, look out for him.
He's been hot lately.
But TJ Oshie, keep an eye on him.
Oshie, yeah,
I'm sorry.
Oshie, yeah, and the thing about Oshie is he'll spear you too if he needs to. So he's one of these guys that look out for that little cheap shot. So yeah, between Wilson and Oshie,
Yes.
they're definitely not afraid to kind of give you the shiv. And Ovechkin, of course, is another one. So yeah, that's a quick. Actually, just because it just popped into my head, and maybe people don't want to talk about a fourth line, but I think in this series, Matt Rempe's got to play over Brzezinski. So if we go into like a quick review of the Rangers and who you think, is it just going to be obviously the team that's been playing for the last few games now that they're healthy? I got to think Rempe in over Johnny B. What do you think on that one?
I agree, especially the first game to set a tone. Like if Wilson's going to cheap shot somebody, what Rempire State Building says, hey, you come here, right? So I think that's really important. My concern with Rempe is that he's kind of looks like a giraffe sometimes on skates there because he's so big. Is that making a mistake? A mistake in the playoffs can cost you a game. That would be my only concern with Rempe. But because of people like Oshie, and let me tell you, Ovechkin, like you said, Ovechkin will wipe you out. He's a bull. Wilson, Ovechkin, Oshie. So I think Rempe now can play a really big part in this series. Also that he gets the fans going at the Garden.
Yes.
And pumps up the Rangers, I believe, when he's on the ice. And when you have a guy that will watch your back on the ice, you know what? You skate a few inches taller.
Sure.
So I think it's a big Rempe can make a big difference in more than just his play on the ice. Just the Rangers knowing he's on the bench. If something happens, he'll be there to answer the bell.
Okay, so I'm happy you said that because especially at home, especially game one. And then you let it see how it develops. Let's see how the series develops, but don't get into that situation where in game one at the Garden, he doesn't play and they are chippy and they beat the Rangers because they play tight games. If you're looking at their results this season, the Caps played a lot of tough games. That's how they play, right? They try to beat you 3-2, and that could be frustrating for the Rangers.
Yeah, and the Caps have all the experience in the world, right? They've got a ton of experience with playoffs. They won the Cup 2-3 years ago, it was. So, they've got a lot of experience there. They traded away Mantha, he's a big guy. I'm kind of glad. He's another guy that would steamroll people, but they traded him to Vegas. So that was kind of good. Thank you for doing that. But, it's not, yeah, thanks. Vegas, thanks for taking him. And I think he had 20 some odd goals also, but he's a monster. A couple of years ago, he ran through the Rangers. Buchnevich, who's on St. Louis now, wound up cross-checking him in the face. But so I'm glad he's gone. But if that first game turns into, let's say they beat us on the scoreboard and beat us up physically without Rempe being in, I believe that puts us in a big hole, down 1-0, and psychologically down because you got a beating and you lost the game. So I agree with that 100%.
And ultimately, let's face it, the fourth line is going to play, 10 to 12 minutes in the game. I mean, obviously, VC will play more because of penalty killing. And Goudreau will play more because of penalty killing. So it just depends on how many power plays there are. So Rempe might literally not even skate. And Brzezinski's just, in my opinion, he's just not good enough to – he's a perfect guy to have as the extra forward, but it's not like, oh boy, we lost the game because Brzezinski didn't play. I mean, I'm sorry, I just can't see it. So we'll see how it plays out.
Right, I agree with that 100%. Also, Hedl is skating with the team. I don't know if you heard. He's practicing with the team. I don't know.
I can't see it.
How I'd fit him in. I really, do you take a chance on him, getting scrambled eggs upstairs? I mean, but
only if somebody. Sorry, Steve. Only if somebody gets hurt. If somebody gets hurt. Okay. What are their scores?
Right, I agree with that. Right, rest him, and where does he fit? To mess with this lineup that won the President's Trophy, kind of, let's leave it intact. If we get, let's say we're down, 3-1, maybe you want to change it up and throw Hedl in, try to bring this or any series back, maybe. But, again, hopefully he can have a long career with us. He's got some skills.
So I have a question for both of you. Of course, you're taking the Rangers, but in how many games?
I'll go, Steve. You're the guest, so you can go last. So if you can fade me, whatever I'm doing. I'm a little concerned about this series, so I'm going to go Rangers in 7.
Wow.
Really? You think the Caps can take them to 7?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But that's okay. I've been concerned all year, so that's probably most people who've been following me. Probably okay. Good.
That's a Ranger fan. We win the President's Trophy, and all we look at is the negatives, and oh my God, the sky is falling. When we win the Stanley Cup in 7 games, you said, we should have won it in 6. Really? I mean, come on, what's wrong with the Rangers?
Hey,
But that is how many years of suffering? You know what I mean? But I think if Igor is on his game, I think we could take it in 5.
5.
I
Yeah,
really
5.
do. If Igor can shut them down, and he is capable. I mean, I believe we can take it in 5. But he does get frustrated. When you bump Igor, he gets mad. He goes after people.
Yeah,
And
he's got
that's what
one
the
thing.
Caps, Wilson and Oshie and them are going to do. So he's got to stay focused in his game. He can't be sticking his blocker in people's face. This is the playoffs. You can't take that penalty. Penalties, cost you in the playoffs. So, but I really put my faith in Igor. I really believe he can shut the Caps down because their offense isn't that strong. The Caps. I mean, they can play a grinded out game and grind it out with you, but they're offensively, I don't think they're that strong.
You know,
Just
I
my thoughts on it.
no, I think you're probably right. So hopefully you're right because we want a short series. One other thing I want to ask you about, and since you played hockey, I think this is your perfect person to answer this one, is the changing of the defense pairs this late in the season. I'm not thrilled with this at all, and I think they're going to stick with it. What do you think? Because Schneider playing with Miller, Truba with Gustafson, and obviously they're not splitting Lindgren and Fox. I don't know about that. What do you think?
I'm leaning and agreeing kind of with you. I played with a couple of guys for years and years and years. And one of the guys, Johnny O'Brien, I played with, and we played together so long all the time and kind of knew each other and what was going on. And there was a comfort to that. Almost like I know he'll be there or he knows I'll be there. So changing up this late, I agree with you, is, you want to know that the guy you're there with, you want to know exactly, like Fox and Lindgren, right? Fox makes Lindgren better than the sum of his parts because they play together so well, right? I did like, though, as a little counterpoint, I did like the way Schneider and Miller played together. I thought when Trouba was out, I thought they did a great job. Okay. But again, so if they play that, does Trouba play the third pair defenseman? Your captain should be as a third pair defenseman. I don't see it. And the thing with Trouba, he can change the course of a game in a series. Also, just ask Sidney Crosby and the Penguins from a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
right? When he wiped out Sidney Crosby. So I would want my captain and a guy that hits like that in the playoffs on the ice more. But if he's going to be playing third pair with Gustafson or Zach Jones, he's not going to be on the ice as much, right? Unless they'll have him out there probably to kill penalties and stuff. But I do kind of agree with you that I like the familiarity of playing with somebody for a while and switching it up this late, because you start making mistakes on defense, winds up in your net, you know.
All
So
right.
I
So,
agree
all
with that,
right,
John.
so we're both picking the Rangers. We're both picking the Hurricanes. Let's get to the other teams in the East. We'll kind of just with the West. I'll ask you to pick one team who's going to be in the finals. So what about these other series, or just in general? Talk about good teams, right? So it's Boston, Toronto, right, and then the Florida, right? The Panthers playing Tampa. Now there you go.
Yes.
That's going to be a nasty series. You got any thoughts on those?
I want to watch all those games. I think this year's playoffs and the teams that can win it are there's so many teams I think that with the goaltending or break here or there can win the cup, both in the West. In the East, I think there's cup contenders. You got to go Rangers. You could go Florida, Carolina. I mean, like any one of those 3 teams to me from the East can win it. In the West, the Stars, if Vegas gets their injured players back, the Avalanche, the Oilers, I'm not so keen on their goaltending and stuff. But I think in the other series, let's say you have Toronto playing, come on,
Yeah,
brain,
Boston.
Toronto playing the Bruins, right? The Bruins. I Toronto's offense is phenomenal. I mean, they're probably top 3 offensive team in the NHL, right? Bruins goaltending, the tandem they have, phenomenal, right? They can start either goalie. They don't really have a backup. It's like a 1A, 1B there. I'm going to lean towards Toronto. I know most people are saying Boston, and Boston's got the experience, and they muck it up, and they got the Long Island boy, McAvoy, there, so I kind of tend to go with the Long Island boys. I'm going to go Toronto on that one. I'm
Okay.
going to go Toronto on that one. I'm going to say that one's going to be a dogfight to 7 games. All right. What are your thoughts on that one? Or do you want me to go through all of them and
Yeah,
then
no, just yeah, and Florida, Tampa. What's your thought there?
Florida Tampa is going to be some series. You got two goaltenders. Bobrovsky last year carried the Panthers all the way to the finals, right? Vasilevsky, he's won what, 2 cups and been phenomenal. He had the back injury. He's getting a little older. I think that series, you got your stars on both teams. The Panthers play a very heavy game, right? They hit you every chance they get. I think if it goes 7, I think they can wear down Tampa, right? With the constant hitting. Tampa's getting a little older. Hedman's a little older. Stamkos a little older. So if it goes 7, I'm going to lean towards Florida. But with experience and stuff, if in 5 or 6, I'm sorry, if it goes 7, I'm going to go Florida Panthers. If Tampa wins it, they're going to have to win it in 5 or 6. And I know 5 sounds crazy because those teams are so evenly matched, and the Panthers play like a runaway freight train. So Tampa's going to have to deal with that. But overall, I'm going to say the Panthers are going to take the series.
Okay. So yeah, I can't go with Toronto in anything because they're habitual losers. So I'm not taking them.
And I 100% agree with that point.
But the other side, it's interesting because what happened to, I mean, John and I took Boston last year. Everybody took Boston and they flopped. I'm almost thinking it's going to be like a reversal where Florida gets it the other way, what they gave last year. I just hope that side of the bracket just beats each other up, where if the Rangers can somehow get through on their side, that we just face a team that's played a bunch of games. It's such a haul, the NHL. So yeah, we'll just let's get right, because I know we want to talk about some other sports. Steve, is if who's coming out of the East, who's coming out of the West, who is you don't have to do your champion. We kind of do that at Bouk and Zoobie. You just have to give us your finalists. But if you want to give us the Stanley Cup champion as well, go for it.
Okay. Well, as a Ranger fan, this is a little biased. So I'm going to tell you out of the East, the Rangers are going to come out. So I'm being a little biased here. Although Carolina Rangers, either or, I'm going to lean Rangers because of goaltending. Not only because I'm a Ranger fan, but I think Igor outplays whoever Anderson or whoever Carolina puts in net. And I'm banking on Igor stealing a series for us, if need be, right? Out of the West, if Vegas, with the addition of Mantha and the defenseman they got, Halifin from the Flames, their roster's super strong. Stone has been out all year, the typical, circumvent the cap thing. He's supposed to come back. Peter Angelo's been hurt. If Vegas gets all their guys back healthy playing, they got a shot to come out of the West. But I also like Dallas. Dallas got 8 20-goal scorers. They have kids in Johnson, Hintz, and Robertson, and they got vets in Jamie Benn, Steve Duchesne, Pavelski, Sagan. So they got the vets too. So I like either one of those teams coming out of the West. I'm a big Edmonton Oilers fan. I love watching McDavid play. I hope he makes it to the finals just to watch him weave in and out, except doing it against Rangers. Right. But other than that, I just think their defense and goaltending isn't strong enough to carry them. But I hope I'm wrong on that. I do favor wanting to see Edmonton Rangers final. But I don't think we're going to see that.
Irregardless of who comes out of the West, just like last week where my partner went for the Knicks to win the NBA championship. Steve, if you go Rangers to win the Cup, I'm leaving the city. So what do you got? Are the Rangers winning the Cup, in your opinion? You could say yes.
Like I said, this could be a little biased, but I think Igor can carry us to the Cup, And Panarin's going to get shut down. So I believe, usually you throw your best checking line and your best defensive pair against the other team's best line. So I think they kind of shut Panarin down. So the two keys for the Rangers to make it is Mika Zibanejad's got to pick it up 5-on-5, and Igor's got to be Igor. And limit the defensive mistakes and stick to the system. When the Rangers stick to their system, they win a President's Trophy.
Right.
So I'm going Rangers. I'm going.
Okay.
You know what? 1940, 1994, 2024. So we got the fours in all of them. So I'm going with the fours.
You're going with the fours. All right. Yeah. And I feel terrible because we talked about some of the other things, but yeah, we didn't even mention Mika Zibanejad until now. And then we haven't even mentioned Chris Kreider. So other two guys,
Right.
I mean, Mika had his ups and downs, but he's such a good all-around player. And we have to mention Kreider. Everybody loves Chris Kreider. So, all right, man, I will not pick the Rangers to win the cup. There's just no way I'm doing that. So I'm gonna go Boston, and I was gonna go Dallas, but since you like them so much, not that I'm going against you, Steve, I will go with Colorado. So that will be my picks: Boston against Colorado, where New York will not be watching the Stanley Cup Finals. Maybe because it's in June is another story, right? So anyway, all fired up Sunday afternoon. I hate it, but I'll be there watching. Probably the puck dropping about 3:10 Eastern, give or take. Right. So that's the view, John. I being kind of a guy on the outside, but being a long-time New York sports fan, do you really think the Knicks and the Rangers can win their championships? Do you think that actually can happen?
Hey, it was one game away in 1994 with both of them winning at the same time. It's funny how the Rangers won and the Knicks were one game away from winning. So yes, I actually think it could happen.
All right.
Why not?
Awesome. Well,
listen, like we said with the NBA, anything can happen. Anything can happen. How healthy are the teams? That's what it really comes down to, is how healthy is every team. And from what I've been seeing, again, the Islanders are actually really hot right now. I would not be surprised if they beat the Hurricanes. They'll do the Rangers a favor. They may have a shot of beating the Hurricanes from what I've been seeing with the Islanders. But it's funny with the Maple Leafs. All the Canadians are all saying, yeah, this year it's Toronto's year. We actually had one of our guests say, yeah, we're going with the Maple Leafs. It's like, yeah, you say that every year. So,
and every year they bomb. That's true. Do you want me to piss off all the Maple Leafs fans? Want me to piss them all off?
Sure.
Austin Matthews didn't get 70 because he can't take the pressure. He had 2 games to get 1 goal and folded in the pressure. They're going to be protesting outside my house now.
Well,
and he's a phenomenal player, best goal scorer in the NHL, best goal scorer bar none in the NHL right now.
Well, but don't worry, Steve. John's got the Boston Celtic fans at his house because he's been trashing them. So now we're taking shots at the Maple Leafs. A lot easier, I think, taking shots at the Maple Leafs than the Boston Celtics. But anyway, so we want to get into.
They got to cross the border.
Yeah. We know you're a football guy too, Steve, and the Bouk and Zoobie show. It's our bread and butter, of course, is the NFL off season. We're gonna have our draft show next week with our draft analyst Alexander Stam, and can't wait for Alex. He's been studying like crazy, watching films. He's watching everything he can get. Looking forward to his commentary. The Jets sitting at the 10th pick. I mean, it's Brock Bowers or bust. We need a weapon, right, John? It's just one of these things. I think every Jet fan we know we need the O-line, but at the same time, we need guys who can put the ball in the end zone. We got the receiver. We got Breece Hall. We need another weapon. I'm not saying it's going to be Brock Bowers, but they need a weapon. So can't wait to talk more about the NFL next week. So we'll talk a little bit about him. So Steve, give us a little. Who's your team? I don't even know. Because if you could,
the Jets are
somebody else. Who do you like?
The Jets are my favorite team in football. We're suffering Jets Rangers fan and a little bit of Mets suffering in there too. I really like the Jets team. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, They just picked up the guy from Philadelphia, the defensive player, who I think is really good. His motor runs great. Our defense was what, top 5 last year, I believe. And we won
Statistically,
how
yeah,
many
I think
games
so.
with Zach Wilson? With Zach Wilson and a guy from Huntington High School quarterbacking. I don't, you know what I mean? So I think the Jets are going to go for yeah. What's it? Zach Wilson, and who was the other guy? I can't even remember who filled in for Zach Wilson there or something. But
It-
he played for Huntington High School last week. I don't know,
so yeah, Tim
but
Boyle, but Steve, the
oh, there you
Jets
go.
want their fan base to forget it didn't happen. You have to understand that because John, now that the off-season workouts and have started and Aaron Rodgers is back throwing to Garrett Wilson in shorts and a t-shirt, I don't even know if it's new material or they just broke out last year's stuff and threw it out there again. So, I mean, it's just absolutely hysterical how the Jets organization wants their fan base to care about what uniforms they're wearing, which is another funny thing we have not talked about. Where Steve, now you've been around forever, so this is good for you too where we're joking that the uniform and the emblem, more importantly, they're going back to the era of the 80s. But us guys who were around during that era remember that when we couldn't wait to get rid of that insignia with the jet above the literal
Oh,
airplane above.
right, that was that line.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked
So
like someone took a crayon and went across with a line, right?
right. So they're going back to this, supposedly the young Jet fans who never were around for that era want this. And it's really funny because you see they're so excited and we're laughing because it's like they don't even know the history of this emblem and we couldn't wait to get rid of it. They like anyway, so it's back, John. I know you got to make a comment about the uniforms. I know you love this stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, back then, the reason why they changed it is they wanted to show the Concorde. If you remember the Concorde jet,
Right.
that whole insignia, that whole symbol was the Concorde, and I still think it looks like the Concorde when they went back to it,
It's
right?
the same thing,
They
John.
didn't change the jet at all.
It's the same
So they have
exact thing.
they have an obsolete a jet that's not even made anymore, the
Well,
Concorde.
considering how
They
Boeing
could
is
have.
suffering, it's probably not a bad thing. Maybe they should stick with the Concorde.
I was going to say they could have a jet with the door missing and call it a Boeing jet
Yeah.
on the helmet. But yeah, they're taking a beating. Woof. But I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on the jet? I mean, Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback to me. He's got a Super Bowl, but his playoff appearances the last 10 years haven't been great. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Sorry to
Oh,
be asking a question, but
no, no, absolutely. Feel free. I mean, we got tons of material, right, of talking about the Jets and how we felt and the Rodgers trade. And we had a special episode, Steve, where we destroyed the Jets when they made that trade. Not that we didn't like Aaron Rodgers,
okay.
about how much they gave up for him. I made the comment that even though he played 4 plays, I thought he looked old. Now I know it sounds insane to say that after 4 plays, but I honestly thought he looked old. And now it's a year later post Achilles surgery. So you talk about Ranger fans being negative, my God. So I'm excited. I will be excited opening week. I am not going to be excited before that. I'm not falling into this trap. We follow the draft. We'll talk about that. So that's my thoughts. John,
Okay.
you want to tell Steve your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers and the
Yeah,
Jets? Or
I mean, it's the same old thing with the Jets. I'm gonna wait until I'm not gonna really watch preseason because they'll barely use him. I'm just gonna wait for the opening game. I have really no expectations this year. I really don't. I mean, other than let's stay healthy. If they stay healthy, they'll win. If they don't stay healthy and we go through at least we have a backup quarterback this time, and he's okay. I mean, he's not Carson Wentz like what I wanted, but listen, I'm just gonna wait until the season starts. There's no more of this HBO nonsense and watching what did we call it,
the
Paul?
Jets propaganda show.
Propaganda, right?
Yeah.
The Jets propaganda. No,
No,
I'm
they'll
not.
be back. They'll be back because don't worry, John. Like I said, they're going to reuse all the material that they didn't use last year. Why even bother? And those slow motion passes of Aaron. So, but the bottom line, Steve, is we're big Jet fans, and we will be into the Jets, and we want the Jets to win. We're not like these
Of
fan,
course,
type of
of
guys who are like
course.
rooting
Right,
against them
right.
just to be
You know
right.
what? Your take on Rodgers looking old was interesting. He throws the ball beautifully, but his movement looks stiffer. Is that what you meant by like the way he
Uh,
just moved around? He just looked
yeah,
stiffer.
He
he
didn't
looked.
move.
He
He
couldn't
didn't
Okay,
move.
move at all.
Yeah, it's 4 plays. And,
okay,
and actually only 2 of them were passes,
right.
but he almost got hurt on the first one. And then the
Right?
second one, he did get hurt, and he just looked like he had no maneuverability. I know it's absurd, but that's what and I said it at the time, right, John? I said
Yeah,
it after
we
that
both said it.
it happened. Both of us were saying the same thing that we were like, uh-oh, he did not look good. And with the Jets O line being in the situation it was, we knew he'd be in trouble. And of course, no one thought it would be 4 plays in. And so now they just need a
Right.
miracle. They're going all in. We're excited for it. We'll be there opening day, like John said. And we'll talk about, like I said, the draft.
Yeah.
So anyway, any other NFL stuff out there, John? I guess Bill Belichick's been out there the last couple of days, he kind of brought that trade up with the Jets in the draft, and it is quite amazing that nobody hired Bill Belichick. And I guess it was the funny story today that it came out that the Falcons front office, they asked everybody to give their top 3 candidates, and none of them put Bill Belichick as in the top 3. So, I mean, that is really kind of an interesting story.
Yeah. Well, the other part of
Did you
that
hear the
story.
rumor?
Well, the other part of that story is that Blank called Kraft, and Kraft
Yeah.
says
Bad
that
mouth him,
he'll
right?
never listen to you. And Blank was going to overrule everyone. He was going to hire Belichick. He said that he had a great conversation with him and everything. But then, again, I don't know if it's true, but this is what they've been saying, that Kraft didn't exactly give him an endorsement, Belichick an endorsement. So, you know,
Yeah, that's
billionaires
the rumor I heard that
maybe
he
they're
actually,
giving them the high sign. Don't hire him.
right.
So,
I
but
mean, if he wants total control like he had in New England, if I'm an owner, I don't give that to him because he didn't do a good job that way. Does he know football? Yeah. Can he coach? Yes. Is his style maybe a little, you know, past decade? I believe so. But the guy knows football. But as far as picking players and drafting, I mean, geez, I think I could do a better job.
No, he
You
did. No,
know,
agreed. So, was there anything else out there,
you
John,
know,
before we move on? Because the time is flying here as we're
yeah.
talked a lot of NHL. Anything
No,
else?
I mean, I'm going to bring it up, and he's not our favorite person, and maybe it's good riddance that he's gone, but O.J. Simpson passed away. And, you know,
bye
as I
bye.
say, good riddance, good riddance. Even though,
I
listen,
agree.
he was
I
a
agree.
great player. I loved him in the Naked Gun movies. You know, but, when you butcher 2 people,
Hertz commercials?
oh yeah, and the
The
Hertz
Hertz commercials,
commercials.
he's phenomenal.
All right. So
Yeah.
OJ makes the Bouk and Zoobie show for the first time. We had never actually mentioned OJ Simpson's name appropriately. Yeah, John. Anything else beyond OJ Simpson?
No, that's it for NFL this week.
All right, well, folks, I know it's going to be a short one this week, but we got to get to it because we do it late, and we didn't do it during the NBA preview show, and I got some nasty grams, and they said, "Where is baseball with Boo?"
Thanks, Paul. So as we spoke about in the beginning of the show, I think Carlos Mendoza actually listens to our show and has listened to me beg him not to keep changing lineups. And when you asked me 2
I
weeks
did.
ago, what is my lineup? And I told you my lineup. And it was just purely coincidence, but he had the exact lineup that I told you on the show the next day. As I said to you, Marte needs to be in the second position in batting order. He looks like the Starling Marte that we expected. He's healthy, he's hitting, He's base stealing. I'm very happy so far with Mendoza keeping a set lineup. We'll see what happens when Martinez finally gets on the field, which will be sometime maybe middle of May. They're saying now,
Is that
maybe.
what it is, huh? Oh my God.
Yeah,
All
they
right.
say he's not going to be on the West Coast trip at all. He's not going to be there at all.
Yeah. So who
Um,
quickly? Who do they have on their West Coast trip?
they have the Dodgers and the Giants. Dodgers and the Giants.
And I think Steve, he just when he heard baseball with Bouk, he just decided that
It's okay.
I'm an NHL guy. I'm out of here. So thanks, Steve. I hope maybe he'll come back, John. We'll see. But
Yeah.
we do appreciate Steve joining. That was some great color out of him, and
Yes.
um,
Yes.
well, thankfully. So why don't you? I'm sorry, continue, John. But just wanted to point out
No.
more
Yeah, we're
Steve.
playing the Dodgers and the
Okay.
Giants. We're going to see Yamamoto tomorrow night against Sean Manaea. My man Severino pitched through 6 innings
Yeah.
yesterday. He's looking good. He's looking good. The bullpen
Guys, you lost me
solid.
for a minute. Sorry, I'm back.
That's
Sorry, it's
okay.
okay. We just thought you didn't want to talk about baseball, Steve. Don't worry. You'll
I
Um,
don't know baseball, but it wasn't. I'm on my phone and I got a call. I thought I blocked all calls, but somehow my wife got through and canceled me out. But that's what we have wives for.
yeah. All
You
right.
got to edit that out, though.
Oh
No,
yeah.
no, Steve. This is it. Our producer's going to leave that one in, so it's going to be fun.
All right, I got to take my lumps then. What are you gonna
Yeah,
do?
yeah. Your wife gets a mention, though. She'll appreciate it. All
Yeah.
right, John.
There
Get
you
back
go.
to the Mets on the West Coast, Steve. That's what we're talking about. The
Yeah.
Mets West
So
Coast
the
trip.
Mets, since they've made that lineup change, have been 10-3. The pitching has been there. Uh, the expectation for me is if they at least split out on the West Coast, it's a successful West Coast trip for them. But we'll see how Mr. Yamamoto is. I'm very curious to see how he's going to pitch against the Mets, who will not just swing at anything. They're very patient hitters. So let's see what happens with them. But the bullpen has been great. You're going to laugh about this, Paul. So if you remember uh, Tonkin that we actually ended up selling to the Twins,
Right.
they used him one time. They released him. Guess which team he's back with? The New York Mets. He's on their roster again. So they sold him and they brought him back. Just just crazy stuff with this team. Harrison Bader, another guy that I was praising his signing. Defensively, fantastic. Hitting, he looks like he's playing the way he was with the Cardinals. Spark plug. If he can keep that up, I'm telling you, we have a grinding team. They're almost like, for now, the way they've been playing, they're almost like the Knicks of MLB. They're just going to grind it out. They're not
No,
going to hit a lot of home runs.
right. They're
They're
likable.
just going to, steal. I mean, the thing that I've been seeing a lot of that they haven't done in years is hit and runs. They've been stealing bases. They're bunting guys over, and they're doing a good job of bunt. I mean, you have guys like McNeil who have never bunted in his life. I'm telling you, fundamentally, they've looked great these past 13 games.
All
So
right.
I'm crossing my fingers. Starting pitching has been very good, other than Manaea's last
Let's
start.
start.
He didn't do very well. I mean, he was just walking people left and right. But no, I just like the way the team is. I like the lineup. Beatty, again, totally different player from last year. He actually has confidence out in the field. He's defensively, he's been tremendous. I'm looking forward to the rest of the year. Again, the pitching is what's going to carry them. That's what's going to carry them. If the starting pitching starts falling apart, then they're a 500 team.
All right. So you are going to, do you take a nap when the Mets are playing on the West Coast before staying up? It's an honest question. Do you take that mid-afternoon Bouk nap?
Actually, the nap happens at about 9 o'clock hopefully that I hope I wake up at 10:30 to watch the game. So, because I'm
That's what you're
usually
playing.
falling asleep now. I mean, this is what happens when you're almost 60. That you start falling asleep around 9 o'clock if you wake up at 6 a.m. So that's my nap.
Yeah, that's brutal. But at least the games are faster now. So in the pre-pitch clock era, those 10:30 games used to go to like what 1:30
1:30
easy.
to 2 o'clock in the morning.
So, all right.
There was
Well,
actually a game with Boston the other day that the game finished in 9 innings, 1 hour and 49 minutes. The
wow.
game.
That's not even enough
That's
though.
good for baseball. Oof,
Not if you bought a ticket though, right? You want to see at least 2 hours when you
oof.
pay all that money, right? So I agree on the
1 hour,
three.
49
Well, you say
minutes.
you don't have to buy more snacks. You get out of there earlier, you save about $100. You don't got to buy Cracker Jacks.
All right.
One
So what
other
about
thing,
we should
two
mention
other
the
things I
Yankees.
want to mention.
Gotta mention the Yankees though.
Whitey Herzog
Oh,
passed away.
yes.
And you talk about missed chances. So a lot of people don't know that Whitey Herzog started in the Mets organization and was a very big part of their organization. And when the first general manager, I think his name was Johnny Murphy, he was supposedly was supposed to take over his position, and they gave it to someone else. So when Gil Hodges passed away, everyone thought that Whitey Herzog was going to get that. They decided to give it to Yogi Berra instead. So after he was overlooked for the GM position and also managerial position, he ended up going to the Texas Rangers, and then we know Kansas City Royals, and then the Cardinals, and again, tremendous manager. Drove the 80s Mets crazy with that team. I mean, just he made something out of nothing with that team because it was just Willie McGee, Tommy Herr, Terry Pendleton. I mean, okay players. I mean, not star players on that team, but they won a world championship and should have actually won several, to be honest.
Well, and also Whitey Herzog helped the Mets win a World Series when he sent Keith Hernandez packing and made
Yeah,
him available. So little side note there
they'll
for all
never
you.
understood that trade. Why did he make that trade, giving up Hernandez for Rick Ownby and Neil Allen?
John, well, it was that
I'm
court case
I'm
situation,
going to
right?
throw a little guess at that maybe his off the field
Yeah.
habits, they didn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah,
He's
I'm
definitely
guessing at that, but I know a few friends that seen Keith out back in the day, and
yeah,
he was a
no.
good
No,
partier.
that's definitely the reason why he got rid of him. But
yeah.
still.
All right. Well, quickly, I
I could
mentioned
be
the
wrong.
Yankees, John. So we should mention the crosstown team was kind of, I'm not going to say falling on hard times. They haven't, but they're crazy hot start. They've come back a little bit. So what's your view?
They had a great comeback yesterday. They
Yeah,
were
they did, right?
down against Toronto, and Stanton hit this moonshot. They're saying it was 457 feet. I think it was much deeper than that. I think it was well over 500 feet. And they just rallied in the ninth inning and they beat Toronto. Otherwise, they would have been swept.
Yeah.
They would have been swept in that series. So, but it all comes down to pitching. That's what it comes down to. And I'm still saying that the Yankees will win. I think we changed our predictions that there will be over 91 wins.
No, I stayed
But
under. I stayed under.
yeah, but they're not winning the World Series. There's no way. Not with that staff the way it is.
Well, we'll
No.
see. So I'm still under on the Mets, still under on the Yankees. You're still over on the Mets. You reversed and went over on the Yankees. We'll be talking about baseball all summer. So I think, we've been talking so long, guys. I think we got to say goodnight, right? So
Yes,
before John
we
has
did.
his nap, before the Mets play. So again, Steve, really appreciate you being on the show. I will be watching with you every minute of the Rangers series. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen, for having me on. I enjoyed it. I love talking hockey, hearing about hockey. I appreciate the chance to be on. Thank you very much. You guys got a great program going, and I'm going to tell my friends, my students, forced to watch that they don't have a choice. So
Extra credit.
we're going to build up that audience. I'm sorry?
Extra credit if you watch and you like the episode. You got to like it too, Steve. They got to like the episode.
Where
So that's,
if
you
the
get
extra
credit.
the extra credit would that they won't get a kick in the head. I teach martial arts, so I don't teach classes. So it's either a kick in the head or watch the show. So
There you go. All right.
we're gonna build up that audience.
Oh, I didn't know you were teaching martial arts. There you go. All righty. Well, we have the other
Yeah.
professor say goodnight and thank everybody. Thanks again.
As always,
Good
thank
night,
you to our
gentlemen.
producer, Zach Zubulake, and to our loyal listeners and viewers. Keep the feedback coming. We love it. Also, thanks to our community partners, Ronald McDonald House, Kids in Seats, and the Jackie Robinson Foundation. See you next week.
For the draft show.